Welcome to Legal Innovation Spotlight, the podcast that brings you the latest advancements in legal tech and knowledge management. I'm Ted Theodoropoulos, and I connect with the industry's brightest minds to provide you with valuable insights and actionable takeaways. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Kara, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How you doing, Ted?
I'm doing great. You and I saw a thread on LinkedIn about some open source data, and you had made a comment in there that opened my eyes to some things that I didn't know. So you and I jumped on a call. You educated me a little bit, and I think we have a really interesting conversation to be had because I can tell I see that post a million times, and I think a lot of people don't understand all the details and nuance behind it. And yeah, it'll be good to kind of get some clarity around that.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we do, let's get you introduced. So you and I were actually on a podcast together. Was that a year ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, let's see. We launched like 2 years ago, so it has to have been within the past 2-year window. I just can't remember when.
It was
Yeah.
me, you, and I think Horace and Max from Legora, and maybe the guy from Legal On. But anyway, so you are the co-founder of Describe AI. You have A to J focus. You actually host a podcast yourself. Why don't you kind of fill in the gaps there and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you do it?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much. And it's really exciting to be on your show. That was a fun one. I remember that. Horace always does a great show too. So
He does.
that's a good one. Yeah, he does. So I'm Kara Peterson. So I'm the co-founder of Describe AI, and we are a 2-year-old legal research company that we like to think of ourselves sort of as the Mavericks of legal research. So we've been called, some have called us the Robin Hood of legal research, which is a fun one too. But our whole goal is to really try to create tools that help change the way people can access what should be, at least in theory, somewhat public information. So that's why I think that post was so interesting to me. And so as I've gotten really interested in AI over the past couple of years and sort of all the things that it can do to change so many different parts of our society, that's where the show came in that I started. It's called Building AI Boston. And that's all about how AI is being used by real people to do really interesting things. So it's beyond legal tech, but legal tech does pop up here and there. So that's me. Those are my two hats. And then my third hat is I have a real job that pays me, but we'll talk about that somewhere else.
Okay, good stuff. Well, let's talk about this open source data movement, legal data movement, and what's reality, what's hype. I think it was kind of an interesting headline grabbing post that talked about 99% of case law was being open sourced, and you had chimed in with some interesting comments just around kind of what that really means. It sounds like some of this data has actually been around for a long time, but might be somewhat dated. Like, kind of separate the fact and fiction around these recent announcements.
Right, sure. So this was one of those things where I saw it come through my LinkedIn feed, and sometimes you have those moments where you're like, should I jump on this one? Should I not? And so I kind of sat on it for a little bit, and then I decided, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to put in my 2 cents here. So the gist of it was, when you think about case law, so that's what Describe has. We have all kinds of case law, right, from across the country. And that is public information, right? I mean, so in theory, you should just be able to get whatever you need and get your access to that easily and so on and so forth. But we all know that's not the case. So what we've done as a company is like find ways to get that case law and do things to it, which makes it more usable. But this post was really interesting to me because there's a few threads. One, and that I'm super in favor of, is this open source kind of like making materials available for people, although we have followed a slightly different path at Describe, which we can talk about later. And so what should be more available to people than our own laws, like obviously. So this post was interesting because it was sort of presenting in some way that access to this case law on Hugging Face, which is great that they're doing this, that they're posting this, was somehow new and different. But anyone who's been around in this space for a while knows that this is not actually a new effort. And so I just wanted to jump in there and sort of talk about what's actually happening in that space. And then there was a second part about it that this was the reason I really jumped on it, was that, oh, the case law's there, so anyone can just throw an AI wrapper on it and make some tools that can compete with with all the established legal research tools, which that's the part where I'm like, oh no, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, there are multi-billion-dollar companies that have built themselves on legal research, TR, Lexis, Bloomberg, others. And yeah, if it were just that simple, they'd be out of business. So why
For
is it?
sure.
Tell us why it's not that simple.
Right. So anyone could get access, and first I should just say as a disclaimer, I am the sort of marketing business development side of our company. We have obviously another side that's the tech side. My co-founder, Richard DeBona. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about it from more like the business perspective. He has much more, deep thinking about how the tech actually works. But the point is just because it's there doesn't mean you can make it useful, right? You still need to be able to build tools and with AI and with other types of, technologies to mine the information that's useful for the user of that data. So it's very easy. And as we've seen, people who are going directly into things like ChatGPT or whatnot to do legal research or legal work are coming across very significant problems that data set will have for them, including hallucinations and things like that. So it was vastly oversimplifying. And again, it's just someone's post. It's not like, they were writing a white paper or something, but just to vastly oversimplify that people can grab that data, take some kind of ChatGPT wrapper, throw it on there, and you're going to create a tool that's helpful for people in furthering sort of access to the law or access to justice, or the democratization of this information was so misleading. And so many people were jumping on that post and saying, oh, wow, this is game changing. It's going to change everything. It just rubbed me the wrong way
Yeah.
because it'll cause more harm than good if people think that's the result.
Yeah, I see it all the time. In fact, there's a guy I follow. I won't say his name, but he has really great content around AI use cases. And yesterday, he posted that he just replaced his lawyer with this prompt, and it's a great prompt, but
Yeah.
it's just not that simple. And I am
Mhm.
definitely in the camp of AI today. The general models can drastically reduce the amount of legal spend, but it does not eliminate the need for lawyers. Like, I'll
Agree.
give you some examples. Like, we have a 409A program here, which is like a way that we incent certain people on the team with like shadow equity in the company.
Hmm.
And we started this program before AI existed. Well, before November of 2022, when Chat GPT 3.5 was released, before it
Hmm.
was easily accessible. So I just, for the hell of it, decided to upload our docs into ChatGPT. Actually, I used Grok for that one. I've been playing around with Grok
Hmm.
and asked for, hey, are there any irregularities or risks associated with how we've implemented this program? And then I said, give me a risk ranking and a probability that one of these risks could potentially materialize. And it did a fantastic job. And then I took that to our lawyers, and then we had a
Hmm.
conversation about it. So
Exactly.
it doesn't eliminate the need for lawyers, but it can today. The general models, not a legal specific tool, can it is it's a there are some really valuable use cases, especially for small businesses like ours. We're like 43 people, and
Yeah.
we don't have big legal budgets, so it's a good way for us to just do sanity checks, especially on lower risk stuff. Like, I don't even read NDAs anymore. I will, if they send me an NDA, I have a custom GPT that I've trained and say, hey, what's the delta? Are there any? Is this one sided? Have a little prompt that I use. Takes me. They're low risk. So for high risk stuff, obviously lawyers still need to be involved in the real nuanced. But what
I agree.
your comment about, yeah, you can't just throw ChatGPT at these big, expansive data sources for a number of reasons. I mean, one, the context window issue, like even
Hmm.
I think Gemini, that I think is now at 1 million tokens, it gets all sorts of detail gets lost in the middle when you upload a ton of content and try to do retrieval or summarize. It misses things. Today's tech does. What are some other
Absolutely.
challenges with just pointing it at a big data source? I don't mean from a technical perspective, but
Yeah.
just kind of data wise, what are the issues?
Well, and I think your point about the nuance is really important, and also your point about risk, right? So if you think about when you're in a situation, like think about it from the consumer of legal, information or legal services point of view, right? So the client point of view. So most likely, if you're engaging in some kind of legal dispute or legal situation, you have a pretty serious thing that you're trying to work through, right? So for when you talk about the risk profile of something being wrong, it's much, much scarier how it could affect people's lives in a legal sphere or like a medical sphere or something like that versus apartment hunting or planning a trip or things like that. And now this is all coming from someone who's like very AI positive and very much like a pro AI. I mean, obviously I have a show about it. I have a company about it. So I'm like super, super excited about the potential the same way you are about how it can help humans become better at what they're doing. But I do think the biggest risk I see about this idea of just pointing at all this data, having people who frankly don't have the depth of knowledge either in the legal sphere or in the tech sphere to understand what's coming back. Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, this is really hard. Benchmarking is really hard. We can talk about that too. Um, because we could end up as a community destroying any possibility we have of having these tools be helpful before they even get out of the gate. And so I'm probably not surprising anybody listening to this call that the judiciary is not necessarily, or the people involved in the courts and things of that nature aren't necessarily the most technically advanced people on earth, right? They just are. And it's okay. And that's not necessarily their job. But if you can see, and we saw it with hallucinations, if we create noise and we create situations where people are causing themselves, like we said, or the system more harm than good, we could end up getting shut down, regulated to a point where we're actually hurting the long-term goals of what AI could do. So, and this, now I'm going to sound a little bit soapboxy here, but some of this can come to the point of everyone's trying to make their dollar on these tools. And of course I am too, so I'm not criticizing, but it's a very different space when you're in the legal space.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned benchmarking. Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So benchmarking. So some of this is I come at it like I'm not an attorney. Um, I don't have a legal background. I have, like I said, a marketing, public health, sort of like social justice background, right? But what do I know about these things, And so when you think about legal tech as a field, as an ecosystem, we haven't done a very good job of helping people assess what tools are good, what tools aren't good, what tools might work for them, which tools have the better housekeeping, seal of approval. And I know there's a lot of discussion going on around this, particularly in the academic circles and with the legal librarians, who are the people who probably will solve this for us eventually, which is great. But we're not giving consumers a very easy way to understand what's good and what's not. And again, I'm part of this, so I'm not, blaming others and saying we're perfect, but we tend to say my product's good, trust me, and I'm patting my back for the people who are just watching, listening, and not watching. Um, and that's not going to be enough for something like this because, again, the consequences are too dire for people getting incorrect information, and that's where the whole human in the loop thing becomes very, very, very important.
Yeah. And, I have seen some initiatives. It's been a while that probably gosh, maybe close to a year ago, I heard about a consortium of uh, sorts that had kind of gotten together. Harvey was on that list as participants,
Mhm.
which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure how much vendors should play a role, maybe an advisory role, but I don't, it's kind of like the fox guard and the hen house. If you creating your own, you grading your own tests. We've seen gaming I mean, Meta got slapped
Absolutely.
around pretty hard not long ago with Llama 4, and
Mhm.
the model that was released had material differences in benchmarking scores than what they presented during those benchmarking tests. So,
Right.
yeah, I think vendors should play a role, but it feels like, I don't know, somebody else should be leading that effort with us supporting them.
Agree. Agree. And it needs to be independent. And this is why I'm really in favor of it coming out of educational institutions. I worked in higher education for a long time, so I know that that's probably the best that we have for an independent lens. Excuse me, because these firms that are marketing firms for legal tech are great. And, of course, they're going to do thorough, sort of looking at these tools. But if it's a client or if it's a tool that, is using their services, it's still hard for people to feel that it's completely independent. And, I don't think in the current environment, the government is going to be doing anything about this. We couldn't really ask, OpenAI or the other models to test it either. So it's a tough one. I don't know. And it's not regulated the way, medical information or things like that is in some ways. So I would say if there's anyone out there who wants to do this, I think you have a big, wide open field, and I think you should make the legal tech uh, companies pay you for it and support it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, back to the kind of legal data movement. When you and I talked last, you had shared some interesting information on just kind of the history of the legal data liberation efforts, and the Harvard Case Law Project and the Free Law
Mhm.
Project. Like, give our listeners a little bit of perspective on where we've been and kind of where we are now.
Right. And I'm sure there's things I don't know about, so I'll tell you the things I know, and then folks can put chime in the comments about things they know too. So the first place that we came across as we were looking for case law ourselves a couple of years ago, the first place we found good access, and then there's also the idea of access to users to research, and the access to people who want to use that technology to create a product, right? Or that, excuse me, that information to create a product, which are not the same. So the Case Law Access Project, which was out of the Harvard Law School's library, was a very interesting project that we came across, and they had all the case law. They have a wonderful story. Adam Ziegler could come on and talk about it if you want. I'm sure, although you probably have to ask him. I'm not his rep. Where they went into the library and they quite literally scanned all their books. And there's just a fascinating story about, how they had to break the bindings, and the librarians were like, some of these old books. But anyway, so they scanned everything they had, and they collaborated with a legal tech company that I'm forgetting the name right now, but they worked with them. And then I think that company was sold to one of the big ones. I think it was Lexus, but you may want to fact check me on that. So their data, we noticed, stopped around 2017, because that's when the project ended. So we had to look for another resource, but that was kind of like in the original Free the Law group from what I've been able to see. And they're still doing a lot of really cool stuff. I think they're ramping up again. So then we came across a group out of Oakland, California, that is powering a ton of innovation in this ecosystem and wants and should be getting a lot of credit. And that was one of the other reasons I jumped on that post, is because I'm like, hey, Free Law has been doing this for years. So the Free Law Project is, I think they've been around about 10 years, and their sole purpose is to make sure that things like case law and other things are actually accessible by regular people. And then they also have, you can create a commercial agreement with them where you ingest their data, which is how we get our data. So it's great. And that's a commercial license. So they're doing that. And then a very interesting space that's new. And I think there's a lot of cool things happening here, including at Describe. It has to do with sort of the other parts of the law, right? Case law is one part of the law, but a lot of people think of statutes, regulations, and all that other stuff as the real law. So happy to talk about that because that's a big missing piece of the puzzle right now.
Yeah, well, let's share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, again, coming from a non-lawyer, so forgive me if I'm not explaining this the way a professor would in law school, but certainly case law is part of what, lawyers, attorneys have to look at as they're building a case or writing a brief or doing things like that. But of course, much of the law is done with just the law of the land, which statutes, regulations, things of that nature. And it's really, really hard to get. It's almost impossible to get. And that's weird, right? When you think about it, because it's all public information. And this also, I think, links back to the judiciary in many states, state governments, and things like that don't necessarily have very sophisticated technology. They can't, it's not something they've invested in. There's sort of workarounds that other companies have provided to them to make it easier for them. And then that data is sort of locked away. Um, so some companies or some places have started to look at pulling that data directly, and that is what we're doing. So we had looked in because we really need to add those resources to our database for it to be as broad as possible. And we started to look at where we could get that data without having to go get it ourselves. And I think we were quoted by one group who shall remain anonymous, $100,000 just for some small piece of this data. And so we thought this is absurd, so we're getting it ourselves. So we're going to have every single piece of, I'll tell you the list because I want to make sure I get this right. Statutes, regulations, state constitutions, court rules, session laws, and attorney general opinions from all 50 states. And it will be part of our database. We will be demoing this at ILTACON, so come by and see it. But we think we'll have the most thorough corpus of anyone, especially at the prices we charge, and everything will be fully searchable across by natural language.
Wow. Yeah, that's
It's gonna be
big
pretty cool.
news. Yeah, that's big
Yeah.
news. And we are we're recording on Monday the 4th, but this episode will be released on Wednesday the 6th, which is going to be in time for ILTACON, so folks can come by.
Yay.
Are you guys exhibiting?
Yeah, we're in the startup hub, which is cool. We haven't been to ILTACON before. The only conference we've done before is Tech Show, which was so much fun. Oh my gosh. We loved that one with Bob Ambrogi and the Startup Alley and stuff. So anyone out there who's got a startup, like apply for that. It's so much fun if you can get in. So we're in booth 123 in the Startup Alley. So come see us.
Awesome. Yeah. We did when we were first finding our way in legal back in our predecessor company. We were called AcroWire. And I'm a former Microsoft guy and just kind of started consulting on the side as a lot of tech people do. And then the side gig started making more than the day job. So I quit.
Yeah,
And
I feel that.
terrible timing. This was like right after the financial crisis, but I had enough client work to keep me busy and my bills paid. So I jumped in and we fell down the legal rabbit hole early, and we didn't really know where our skills mapped on the kind of the market spectrum in terms of size. So our first show was like ABA Tech Show, and it's great for kind of solo and small firms, but for
Yeah.
big firms, really ILTA, Legal Week, those are better fits for our audience, which is large law.
Our first experience in legal tech was just a few months after launching. We were a finalist for one of the Legal Week awards. Wow, that was amazing because we had never been to anything like that, and then to walk into that venue down there at the Hyatt, I thought the Hilton in New York. It was like, holy smokes! Like this is big time. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Stephanie, that was back when Stephanie Wilkins was running it. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Legal Week is an interesting one for us. We attend every year, but it historically has been e-discovery focused. And
Yeah.
I know they've tried to move beyond that in recent years, but we don't exhibit. The exhibit hall is very disjointed. There's all little sorts of nooks and crannies, and but we always make an appearance at Legal Week. for sure.
Yeah, it's a good one. And then the one that I really liked a lot was very different, completely at other end of the scale, which is the LSC ITC, which is the Legal Services Council, right? So that was all about access to justice stuff. So that was really cool. And it was kind of Bob Ambrogi wrote a really interesting piece last year about it, about the difference. Like he went from one to the other, and he was like, wow, just that shows the gulf in sort of resources in the two ends of the pool, so to speak.
Interesting. Well, I'm
Hmm.
curious. You had mentioned the group out of Oakland.
Yeah,
Are
Free Law
they?
Project.
Yeah, yeah. So is that an academic institution? Like who's behind that?
Yeah, so they're a nonprofit. They're run by a guy named Michael Listener, who's great. So hi, Michael, if you're listening. And they are, like I say, they're a nonprofit. So they are very mission driven. I'm sure that they've got all kinds of academics, involved with them and sort of on their board and things like that. But they're a straight up nonprofit, which means that they are um, sort of at the source powering a lot of the legal tech innovation. And of course, they're not going to say, publicly who their clients are unless they're like us, and we're always willing to say we're their client. You would scratch the surface on a lot of these startups and you would see that's where their data's coming from,
Interesting. So
for sure.
with these types of organizations out there working hard to kind of open source legal information, does that open the door to challenge, the what's largely a duopoly? It feels like with Westlaw and Lexis with solutions. Does that open the door for that?
Yes. So yes and no, depending on how you look at it. So broadly speaking, absolutely. Like for sure. Like if anything is going to challenge those duopolies and those, extraordinarily powerful companies, it's AI, right? I mean, that is the moment is here, and they know that. And that's why they're building so fast and acquiring so quickly and, all this stuff. So there's no question, right? And we've seen some really interesting things happening, like with VLEX and Clio and, Harvey and Lexus. So everyone's paying attention to this, as you certainly know, right, Ted? Because you do your podcast, you talk about this a lot.
Yep.
But where it also opens the door. So that's like one end of the market, right? So, and a lot of people, if not almost all people, are aiming for the exact same part of the market, right? So the well-served, the places, and this is fine. They need their tools. This is great. I have nothing, no digs or anything, but if everybody's always aiming for the same part of the market, there's not going to be a lot of innovation, right? That's not where things are going to get exciting, at least from my point of view. My point of view and the way we focus at Describe is how about that gigantic unserved market, right? And I think it was, I don't want to misquote him, but I'm pretty sure it was Jack Newton. It was Jack Newton from Clio who said that there was maybe, I think it was like $1 trillion of unmet need in the legal services industry. Now we better fact check that, or I might get a letter from Clio saying that was wrong. But regardless, there's an enormous amount of unmet need out there for legal services, legal information. So when we were first starting out, we thought to ourselves, we could be a nonprofit, right? We could probably be a very successful nonprofit if we wanted to be. We could get grants, we could do all sorts of things. But we always said, nope, we're a business. We're a business. And while we have a mission driven focus, we are trying to create a very successful and sustainable and profitable business because AI allows us to offer very high quality tools that you could have not even imagined just a few years ago could possibly exist without human intervention. Um, and put it out there at a price that is so absurdly low compared to the competitors that we're just going to gobble up a whole bunch of market share. So that's the goal. So while we do like to present ourselves and we are mission driven, we have a very serious market driven approach to what we're doing. And it's really starting to come to fruition now that we have a paid tool. So I think there's huge opportunity, but I would caution other people who are looking at this space, don't automatically assume you have to compete, with Harvey, with Lexus directly, with VLEX. that's not easy, right? And those are very well-funded firms. So look at other parts of the market where other people aren't looking at it and see what you can do there.
Yeah, I mean, candidly, I've talked about this publicly before, and I don't know, it may ruffle some feathers, but the
That's okay.
what yeah, I mean, I'm not for everybody. I know that my opinions don't
Whatever, ruffle
res yeah,
feather ruffler. You know
yeah,
what I
feather
mean?
ruffle it. Yeah, I've ruffled a few
Yeah.
feathers in my day, and not intentionally, but I feel like just being candid, and if people get offended, then they do. But I we have really struggled on the smaller end of the market within the law
Yeah.
firm world. A lot of people call mid law like 50 to like 150 lawyers. That really feels like small law for us. So
Mhm.
our market is really 100 attorneys and up, and there are about 400 of those law firms in North America, which is our focus. We're
Right.
doing some business in the UK now too, but by my estimates, and there's no good numbers, there's only about 600 law firms on planet Earth who have more than
Mm.
100 attorneys. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of solo and smaller firms in that it's a very kind of, I guess, steeply sloping pyramid.
Yeah, bottom heavy, maybe bottom
Yeah,
heavy.
that's a good way to
Yeah.
describe it.
Mhm.
But it's really hard to do business there. And the reason it's
Very
hard to
hard.
do business there as a tech company is because law firms historically have not seen tech as strategic. And
Mhm.
I mean, that's just a fact. Like, people can say what they want. I've been in this space 20 years. I know it to be true that has been the historical perspective in the law firm world. That is
For
changing,
sure.
and there are
Mhm.
outliers where that is not true, and I get that. But in the smaller end of the market, the things that we've struggled with are a lack of sophistication from a technical perspective. They could be
Oh, yeah.
rock stars on the practice side, but
Yeah.
a lot of
Oh, yeah.
times in that 100 attorney and under world, you'll have an IT director who was their former network administrator, did a good job, so they got reported, and now they're, you know what I mean? And there's nothing
I
wrong with that.
totally know what you mean.
But
It's
it's
like,
we
give it to the IT guy.
right,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
exactly. And so there's just been a lack of technical sophistication. And there's also a lot of, I got a really good friend of mine who here in St. Louis, he owns a 50 attorney law firm, and
Yeah.
we play golf together. And he asked me for somebody to go speak at his retreat, and I teed a
Mhm.
couple people up, and he was complaining about the price, and I'm like, dude, you are lucky that this person is even giving you their attention, right? They normally speak in front of hundreds or thousands of people. Like, that's a bargain. But it's and it, all small businesses, including us, when every dollar matters. You really have to manage your spend. But when you have limited budget combined with an audience who doesn't see tech as strategic, it's a really difficult market to sell into as a tech company.
Oh, completely. But those people are also in very serious peril,
Right.
right? Like, and we're talking like a long arc here. So
Mhm.
you're right. For like individual companies, like, can can potential customers adapt fast enough to keep us sustainable and keep us going? Like, for sure. Like on an individual or even like like a current market level, like, you could argue that the change is going to be too slow and all that. But if you look at like a broader arc, this is not going to stay the same. Like, think about um, sort of how we get our medical care now, right? And how much that has changed. And, if you had a doctor's office, say, who refused to do e-charts or refused to meet with you online or refused to, take your prescriptions through the portal versus, calling. Like, it's just in medical is another weird one too. But like, people, you couldn't survive, right? You couldn't survive. And so law probably has the wrong impression that there's some people who think that they don't have to adapt in the same way. And there's a lot of resistance. And, for sure, one of the dumb jokes we tell, and we have many, is that when we're like, what should we build? Let's find the let's find the part of the economy where people are most, open to risk and they love technology and they just are ready to change. We're like, law, perfect. Talk about what could we have picked that was harder? I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But I do think we're at a point where no matter what, it has to change. You can't have the triangulation we have right now with the advent of AI and just how fundamentally that's going to change everything we do, soup to nuts, right? And then you have a vastly underserved part of the market, and then a extraordinarily overpriced legacy providers. Like that's going to implode, right? And so the smart attorneys out there, and they're all smart, no offense, the tech forward and the forward thinking attorneys are gonna have to figure out how to adapt to this, or they're gonna see their share of the market, start to crater. And the
Yeah.
new students who are going through law school and learning this stuff are going to come out with different expectations too. So there'll be a fight for talent as well.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, that kind of legacy mindset is incompatible with where we're going. It's just
Yeah,
I know so many firms that are going to struggle to adapt, and not necessarily
that's
some
true.
some small firms. Like I know of an am law firm who I'm really good friends with, the chief knowledge officer there, and I was working on a project with her for a presentation, and she was completely dark in January. And I was like, "Where have you been?" She's like, "Oh, I've been working on a DMS upgrade." I'm like, "DMS? You've been work?" I was like, "That's IT. What's the chief knowledge?" She's like, "I am IT, and I am
Yeah,
KM." And it's like, okay, your firm has set you up for failure if you're going to be promoting
that's a
knowledge and
strategic
innovation.
error. That's a
Yeah,
strategic error on their part. And maybe this dovetails back to the conversation we were having about benchmarking too, right? Because the risks for firms too, and for any size firm is huge if they pick the wrong tool.
yeah,
It's huge if they rely on something that's spotty. That's why the momentum is hard to change with the big trusted companies, because I get it. I mean, if I'm working at some firm and I'm in charge of their IT and making sure they have the right tools, I'm not really interested in some brand new startup. Like that's scary, right? That's super scary. So again, does it come back to where can the industry provide a little more reassurance? I think it's useful for all of us.
yeah. Well, you've had some validation. So, like, talk a little bit about the kind of the case texts and law school curricula and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, so this is really fun, and this actually happened at the tech show. So it's always, note to self, it's always good to show up at these things when you're new, because you never know who you're going to meet. So we, as folks know, have been listening, we have case law research. We have free access, and we have a paid tool, $10 a month and $20 a month, depending on the level. So paid, but almost free, right? So the legal tech curriculum is from, hang on, I'm just going to get the exact right terminology here so I'm not saying the wrong thing. So we will be rolling out into over 350 law schools internationally this fall as part of a legal curriculum that is from the National Society for Legal Technology, and will be part of their legal research curriculum. And what's really fun about this is that we are replacing case text in their curriculum, because case techs no longer, now that they've been acquired for 650 million, good for them. They don't have free access any longer. I think that was turned off in March. So we will be replacing our friends at case techs in the curriculum. And so we will be included with Lexis Plus, Westlaw, Bloomberg Law, Fastcase, and Hein Online, and us, and Describe. So it does show that, I guess, validation of the tool. Doug Lusk, from the CEO from NSLT, said, we were his favorite, and he was very impressed with what we were building. So that was some big validation for us. Another nice piece of validation we had recently was Bob Ambrogi covered our AI citator release and said we were now poised to meaningfully uh, be thought of as a competitor for the big legal research tool. So these are pretty exciting things. And again, good luck of having done this without AI. It quite literally would not have been possible. So we're kind of the poster child for how nimble and lean and sort of creative AI companies can be, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's
We're very
that's
excited.
that's really neat. But yeah, so an interesting thing happened this week. So we are a TLTF portfolio company, and
Oh, cool.
one of the directors over there tagged me and a few others in the post, Tom Baldwin from Integrata, and
Nice.
a VC had written a future of law um, kind of manifesto, and it's so good. Like
Cool.
I agree. It's they're called Catalyst. I'd never heard of them prior to that. Maybe we can
Yeah.
create a link in the show notes. But they mentioned
Yeah.
Infodash, and like as
That's
a
awesome.
company they're excited about. And I get like 15, I'm not exaggerating, 15 to 20 emails from VCs a week.
Oh,
LinkedIn
I'm sure.
messages, they call, I don't even know how they have my cell phone number, but they do. And I'm flattered, but I could fill up my calendar with just talking to them, and we don't need money. Like
Same.
we're
Yeah.
bootstrapped, and we took a little bit of funding from TLTF, not really for the funding, but just because working with them is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
they're different. They're
they are,
they're great.
yeah.
Yeah.
They can open doors. They know the market. It's a really good relationship.
Plus you get to go to their fun summit,
The
which is always in
summits,
really cool places.
it is. It's in Austin
Yeah.
this year. But
Oh,
yeah,
Austin's the best.
it's
Yeah.
been in like the Ritz Carlton in Fort Lauderdale, and then last year in Key Biscayne.
Yeah.
So it's really good. But
Nice.
like I think what is also interesting now with in terms of challengers to these big established players is now you have funds like TLTF that are completely zeroed in. And reading that Catalyst article about the future of law made me realize something. I thought the VCs were hitting us up because we've had really strong growth, and it's very
Yeah.
visible on LinkedIn just by head count. So I was like, that's why
Oh,
they're
right.
hitting us up. But after I read
Mm.
that, I was like, oh, there is a broader investment thesis that what we're doing aligns to. And
Mm-hmm.
I never realized how smart these funds are in
Oh,
understanding.
yeah.
Like, I mean, this is something like
These
I
are
would
some of the
write.
smartest people ever go into these spaces, and VCs, boy, their whole value prop is upside down right now. So they're trying to figure out how to survive too, right? Because AI
Yeah,
is flipping everything. You don't need those kind of big investments anymore for engineering.
I know that's very
So
true. A lot
they're nervous.
there's a lot of money on the sideline that needs to find a home, and it's kind of their job to
Exactly.
do it. But this was written like I wrote it, and I've been in the space 20 years. I host a podcast on it. I
Yeah.
speak at conferences. I attend conferences, and this VC wrote what I thought was a fantastic outlook for where legal is going. So anyway,
Oh, I can't wait to read it. Yeah,
yeah,
you guys sent me the link.
it's really good. It's really good. But so
Nice.
how does a kind of a bootstrapped company, a two-person bootstrap company go about competing with these? I mean, you've told your story. Is your story
Yeah.
repeatable? Like, is that a playbook people can use?
I mean, yes and no. So here's the other kind of thing that's cool. Like everybody always thinks that 20 whatever year old, you know, startup people are magic. And they are. But when you're a startup founder in a different part of your career, later in your career, you can kind of do things a little differently too. Like hopefully you have a little bit of your own money you can invest, or you have a little more, ability to kind of do it the way you want. So I would say that, depending on where you are in your life, because, we did invest in it, right? We invested time and, it's not like OpenAI was giving us free credits, you know what I mean? Like, so there was some significant investment, but we invested it ourselves, right? And so since we didn't have to pay for engineering, which is really expensive, and we didn't have to pay for marketing, which is also really expensive, like we saved a ton of money. So I say yes, it's repeatable for the right people, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you have to have some of your own resources, and you have to be tenacious as hell. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it is hard. It is hard, but
It's
it is
real
fun.
hard. I
And
used to have
and I do,
hair.
yeah. Did you? I used to not have gray hair. So there you go. But I also think, and this is like a bit esoteric, so forgive me, but I do also think AI, we talk about this on the show a lot with VCs and stuff. Like I I think AI is going to also help us think about different ways we fund things, because right now we have like a very broken model, I think. This is where state governments, if they're smart, they're going to start to step in and things like that, which, smart government could be like maybe a big ask. But, if you're a nonprofit and you want to go the full altruistic route, there's resources for you to build, right? There's grants, there's foundations, there's all kinds of stuff. If you want to go the full, I'm going to charge as much as I possibly can for my product and make as much money as possible. So someone wants to buy me and I have an exit. We have a model for that, right? A model like ours where we're like, I could be charging 30 times more for what we have, but I'm not, because I'm trying to do something that's in between. It's like a social entrepreneurship, whatever. There's very limited money, structures, support, even thinking around how to build there. And that's sad, because that is where there's so much opportunity. So I think like the challenge in the call I will put out, if there's any politicos or like people in any space to think about this, like there's a real opportunity there to rethink how we even fund sort of disruptive technologies right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, VCs, PE, growth equity, all of these funding models have to generate return for their
Yeah.
investment. And if you're leaving money on the table, which you are intentionally, like
Yep.
I don't know that that's the right fit for them.
No, they think they don't understand. It's truly bizarre
Yeah.
to them. It's like but they're going to have to adapt, because the model for what people are building is going to change, and they're going to be left out because people aren't going to take their money and then jack their prices up if they're
Right.
social. And the younger generations want to make meaningful change.
Yeah.
They don't want to just be rich.
Now,
Some do, but
it's true. Yeah, I mean, rich can be, a byproduct of just doing good things.
right.
That's the hope, right? And
Yeah, they call it in Massachusetts. Our former Secretary of Economic Development, Yvonne Howe, used to call it "do well by doing good."
right.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's no reason you can't have both.
It makes sense. I mean, we could go take some funding and probably grow a heck of a lot faster and probably end up
Yep.
at a bigger payday. But you know what? I love what I do. I'm growing incrementally. I mean, we're having over 100% year over year growth. It's not like it's
Congrats.
slow, but I'm enjoying it. I like having some
Mm.
VC breathing down my neck, telling me I got to push harder or I have to, fire people that aren't meeting
Or
these
you get fired, or
Yeah.
you
Or
get
you
bumped
get
out, right? They're
exactly.
like, "Oh, never mind. Thanks for building this. Bye bye."
Right, exactly, and that's just not I'm at a stage in my life where I don't need to do that, and I'm just having a lot of fun. My reputation matters to me. I wanna deliver great work to people and hold my head high when I walk around a legal tech
Me
conference,
too.
you know?
Maybe we need our own organization, Ted. Maybe like these like stubborn Gen X bootstrappers. Like we need our own little conference.
You know what? I have thought about, honestly, in the past, some sort of, like, model with which vendors could kinda organize and collaborate, and I haven't figured out how to do that yet, and I'm so busy with my
Yeah.
day job, but, I started a franchisee association. My wife and I own 5 gyms here in St. Louis,
Oh,
and
cool.
that brand needed some help on the franchisee side that we weren't getting from HQ. They're great, but they were growing so fast they weren't giving support. So I started a nonprofit, and it was wildly successful. I handed over the keys. It's still doing great, but man, I got so much. We created mentoring programs. We did a summit
Love it.
where we brought everybody together. We brought in speakers, and man, it was great. That's not a bad idea. Maybe you and I should connect at
We should
ILTA.
talk. Yeah. And then we should encourage, this is from my branding perspective, we should encourage the big players to help fund this, because we're going after markets they don't want anyway, or at least I am. So, it can be like, fine, help the innovation economy, but don't worry, it's not people who want your customers, and then they can look like the good guys in the room who are helping increase access to the law. There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
I like it. They won't like me though because I am taking their market share.
You are competing with them. Okay. Well, we'll keep you. You can be a silent partner.
Exactly, exactly. Well, this has been a great conversation. Before we wrap up, just tell people how they can find more out about what you do, your podcast, stuff like that.
Yeah, great. So first of all, if you happen to be at IltaCon, come by the Startup Hub. booth 123. We'll be hanging out and would love to meet you. You can always check out our website. It's Describe with a Y because, startups have to have weirdly spelled names. So describe.com with a Y. We're most active on LinkedIn, which is kind of like where the legal tech people hang out. So find me on there. Happy to connect. Ping us, stop by the booth, and just love to talk to people in the community. It's the best part of the job.
Awesome. And Infodash will be in booth 308 as well. So stop by there after you stop by Describes.
Awesome.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I look forward to seeing you next week, and let's keep the conversation going.
Great. Thanks, Ted. This was really fun. I'm so happy to have joined you. Thank you.
Awesome. You're very welcome. Take care. Thanks for listening to Legal Innovation Spotlight. If you found value in this chat, hit the subscribe button to be notified when we release new episodes. We'd also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate us and leave us a review wherever you're listening right now. Your feedback helps us provide you with top-notch content.